Okay.
Okay, that is started. No, it hasn't. Oh, that's what I want. Okay, that's going to be 10 seconds off. All right, it's the 16th of December 2015, and we've got a minute taker. No, Sarah. I think we're ready to start, huh? Cool. So just going back to process. Yeah, is someone up for facilitating?
Why don't you facilitate?
I can facilitate. I just talk loads anyway, so it's good for someone else to help me to shut up. So I prefer not to.
Good point.
Yeah, it's really useful when I'm not facilitating and leading most of the items as well.
It's hard to facilitate though without being able to see the.
Yeah, do you want to swap with me? You want to facilitate?
Okay.
Yeah. And you're a little bit more up to speed than I am.
I can also get it up on my phone as well. Oh no, because you need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to have to scroll down to write things, so that's going to be annoying, but we'll figure it out.
It's okay. It's okay.
So.
Do we need to do 1C? What is Change the Future?
I think it's just good practice to just say what it is for people who just stumble across the video.
Sure.
It's essentially a network of projects that follow the same kind of design process, which is transparent and open, fun, inclusive. So there's a bunch of Change the Future projects and Change the Future collaborations with other groups, doing all kinds of things around building the type of democracy that we actually want, and community organizing and group decision making. So there's a broad spectrum of projects there. There's a network of these projects, there's a community of people behind them, and we're also creating resources to support this way of working. I think that's about the best I'm up for doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you just go down a bit just so I can see how many things are on this?
Quite a few.
Is there?
9, I think.
9.
Just pick whatever things you think.
I'm wondering if we should prioritize because maybe some of them aren't time sensitive and could be moved over.
Sure. As you think.
So, someone who's actually had a look at the agenda, do you have any idea what seems top priority?
I would really like to look at roles. Yeah, how we create and approve roles, and whether we're actually ready to approve up to 3 of them.
So is that this number 1?
But then that's number 1 as well.
Okay, so this is actually, let's say that's 3A.
Oh. Huh.
So now it's number 1.
Yeah,
okay,
let me fix
3A.
that, because that's, let me just try and fix that quickly. So just take me 5 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so 4.
Terrific. Number 4.
Okay.
So do we like this template for detailing a role and change feature? Okay, so if you can maybe just quickly click. Actually, I'll do it on this one. Sorry, I'm going to share the screen and show you what mostly Naya and I have come up with in terms of fleshing out roles. We spoke last week about this focalizer role, the name being inspired by, I think, rainbow gatherings and things, but it's basically a role for somebody to help, not exactly just hold someone to account when they take an action point, but just actually make sure it happens and they're supported in doing that action point they've taken on. So here's the focalizer role. We sort of fleshed it out. So there's 2 separate things that me and Naya wanted to talk about. One is, what do we think of this way of creating roles in the first place? So this is a process thing. And again, I think let's always remember how potentially, if we can find a good way of doing this, this is potentially valuable for other projects and groups out there. So I feel like I have a lot of time for sort of working out how to do this in a way that works.
So let me just stop you there. Are you saying that this is partly not only a role, but how do we create roles in general? It's
exactly what you're saying about the like exploring how we do stuff every time we do stuff, like not separating it out.
Okay.
So I think this is a really important thing in a project.
Yeah, I agree. So before we look at this particular role, can you tell us how did this come about?
Yeah. I think it's looking at a few different ways projects do it, so that like do a sort of role description, trying to make it kind of different to a profit-driven company doing a job description, I guess, because this is more purpose-driven. It's more about being called to like do something you actually care about that feels meaningful, and understand how you fit inside this group and this collaboration. So it felt meaningful to have a short summary just before diving in too deep, to have a vision. So like, why do I care about this role? Like, what goes wrong if we don't have this role? Prove to me that it's worth having. And then the other two being responsibilities, so things that you would be expected to do because you have this role in Change the Future. Yeah. And then finally, powers, like any unusual sort of powers or privileges that you have, like access to things, ability to spend money, whatever, passwords, keys to the office.
So it's like resources for the
yeah, things that you have that not everyone else has, because there's a risk in everyone else having it as well, potentially.
Okay.
So yeah, is that enough about?
Yeah.
Actually, well, yeah. It'd be good to get some thoughts on that. Actually,
Well, my first thought is, could it be renamed, or would you lose something by renaming it special resources?
Special resources.
For me, the word powers sounds a little like someone's going to end up.
No, it doesn't sound like that to me. It sounds to me like superpowers. You can talk to kids, right? It's like, it's very playful, and it's also not.
Superpowers is quite fun.
I mean, that's the term we use all the time.
Right.
So, what superpower do you have?
Is we?
No.
That's true. It shows that you're not
Power Academy,
you're not taking
yeah,
it. You're not letting the power go your head. But you know it's not a real superpower.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I have a different point of view.
Yeah.
I read that word very differently.
But can we call it superpower? That make you feel a little bit more supportive of the word if we had to call it superpower?
I don't need to get hung up on the word. It's particularly.
It's really a branding style issue. So,
Yeah.
like, from my point of view, I like to admit all what I'd call overtly hippie type terminology, because it excludes certain types of people. So I like to use more sort of street terminology, because then it doesn't immediately put you into, like, vegetarian Buddhist healing circles. It also allows people who like mixed martial arts to get involved. So I like that terminology. Well, if you want to have a very peaceful, non-conflict orientated branding, then the terminology you're talking about is more appropriate.
What was the word you said? What was the phrase you said?
I said special resources. Yeah, for me, it immediately evokes hierarchy and abuse of power, and that's my concern about it.
So for me, like, special resources makes me think of the council and something you do for disabled people.
Well, it sounds more bureaucratic, and more bland and more neutral.
Yeah.
And the neutral part of it I like. The bland part of it I don't like so much.
Yeah.
What about privileges?
Just privileges?
Yeah.
Or responsibilities.
That's different though. I think that's an expectation, I think, whereas having, I don't know, passwords to all of our online banking stuff or something.
That's
Magic.
a responsibility.
How about magic? Things that you've got
I
the
actually
ability
wouldn't
to do.
separate the two things. I
Non-bureaucratic.
think separating them is where the power comes in. Because stuff like being able to pay for stuff, that's not power, that's responsibility. It depends how you see it, and I would see it as a responsibility. Being the only one that has the passwords to certain things, I would see that as a responsibility, not a power.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's what I'm objecting to.
Yeah.
Power is seeing it in a particular way.
There should be no power without responsibility. Otherwise, we don't want that person to be having the power.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of you kind of having something without it being directly tethered to what it's supposed to enable you to do. Yeah, it's just like, you get to decide how money is created in England. That's your power or privilege. What is that directly connected to you being able to do that helps everyone? Yeah. Cool. I mean, do we want to just decide it now and then run with it, or do we want to create like Google Doc template people can comment on, or is that just too much like pulling too many people into like a sort of?
Well, if you have roles, I mean, maybe a neutral one is abilities. Like, what ability comes with that role?
Ability is more neutral, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, for me,
Capabilities.
or capability.
Special capabilities. It's got to be clear. I think that I do like what you're saying. Like at first, I was like, it feels nice to separate them, partly just as a nudge to remember that is what makes a role and makes it unique. Is to make sure that you've specified. It's almost a sort of built-in reminder to kind of remember that's what you're doing when you create a role. You're creating expectations and you're creating special resources or privileges or things they can do, abilities, that they can do. Like that is the definition of a role, kind of, isn't it? Like I'm the person who has the keys to the safe. That's what makes me the treasurer.
Particular kind of role.
Can I suggest something? It's a slight sort of twist on it. Maybe it'll bring in some other ideas. It's like when I looked at just like the focalized role here and how it was done, I thought immediately of some of the people we met in WeShare and what have you, and the idea of cards and roles and games. So if you're and you have in also software development, you have these personas, and they've got a little cartoon picture, and this is this sort of character, and this is this sort of character, and it's quite playful and it's quite visual. And if you have a bunch of roles and cards, and it's quite playful, and new people come in, it's not very intimidating interface, and people can say, yeah, I'd read that, and that's interesting, and there's this story about this person, and I'd like to do this one. It's an invite, right? Well, when it gets a little bit too administrative and formal, it's quite off-putting in some way as well. So I quite like the idea of keeping it playful and something that could be cards. That's something that you could play in a group sort of setting.
Well, that character thing feels fun.
Yeah, it made me think of a friend of mine who does it for social media. So you have like different roles that you can take on. You do Twitter, you do chasing people, you do this, and it becomes very playful. And so people who are normally a bit shy and inhibited to take on a role, but because it feels playful, they're encouraged to do it, and they don't feel they have to be an expert before they start doing it.
Do you have any idea how we could actually do that in reality? Is it sort of like characters?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, like, I got a site, for instance, which is called for personas, and you have a little picture, and you have the sort of headings like this, and then you can see the different personas, and then groups can just drag and drop them when they're trying to design, let's say, their software. In a similar way, you could have almost like this wiki.
She's the graphic designer person, he's the marketing.
And so you could have a group of these roles, and you could ask other groups to contribute these descriptions of these roles. And someone could say, go and research, like you talked about the Rainbow Gathering, or Occupy, or whoever the particular group is. And they could create this role and this kind of nice story. And then you could kind of have for your own project say, these are like the 4 or 5 roles out of this pool that we really want to use and we really like. So that's, I think it's the role thing. I remember it's been 6 months since I came here, right, things like that, and the role thing was like the top thing then. So it is. I think you feel it's very important, and I agree. It's really powerful and important, and it might be worthwhile doing as literally a resource where you take this example role and then start gradually to add them and open it up so people can copy those onto their own projects.
And it would be so. I think it would really be, that would be real tangible value in my mind if Change the Future could capture the story of how we create a simple, effective way of actually.
I can show you roughly what the site looks like.
Oh,
you go to a new tab and you go to beingarthur.org. If you click on, let's say, Tom persona, or any of them.
This is your creation, isn't it?
So you have like a description. Now this should have specific headings. Now you can actually fork this onto your site and your project, but that's Federated Wiki. But basically you would have like a and you can shift click on these and you can open up the several roles, you know, and see what they're like and say, oh, I like this one, you know, I like that one, and so forth. So it's just its own domain specifically for personas in this case. And what I think might be nice if you have an own domain with something like this sort of interface where you've just got like a almost wiki of these roles, and other groups can contribute them. We can find an illustrator to give them like their superpower cards or whatever we call it, their capability cards, and make it as a real open resource that projects can share. And these could be printed out as cards, so if you've got people around and you don't have one, you're offline, you know, you just say, yeah, these are the roles, and you talk about them. You say you can have this role, or little badges, and that sort of thing.
So, and then this is another thing to sign up to, though, I guess, is it? We'd need people who are taking on a role to sign up to this site, huh?
I don't know if you'd sign up for this. This is a resource, and you just copy this or print it out or fork it. I mean, I don't want to sell this particular piece of software. I'm just, why I like this is because it's federated where you can fork the page onto
so. Yeah, okay. So like another project like Teal for Startups or something.
You just say, I like this one, fork, and it's on your site straight away in 10 seconds, half a second.
Yeah.
But the core thing, I mean, it could just be an index linking to the Google Docs, you know, but what's nice if you just have it almost like card shape.
Does everyone know what forking is?
Yeah. I don't actually, but I guess I'm linking or embedding into the site.
Yeah, it's actually sort of like copying the whole thing. It's if you've got a book there, I could just press a button, and then now I've got an exact copy of it, and now I can modify it, and the changes are there. So it's a fundamental part of open source software. And I can take your software, I can fork it, and I can modify it, and then you can benefit from my changes and take them back. So you can do that as well with text.
It's a pretty exciting idea, I think, when applied to organisations or collaborations. You find some amazing, permaculture projects where they're really effective and they work really well together. Everything from how they stay in touch to knowing who does what or whatever, and then you could just copy the organisational structure. I mean, obviously not the human relationships behind it, but the sort of like mechanical ways they work, I suppose.
You can copy the stories as well. So if there's a little video of someone documenting it, say, I did this role, I did it for 6 months, and this was my experience. You just fork that, and then people can use that to either contact that person or just to improve the role, maybe make it less stressful, because like someone's done too much admin and they took on this role, and like you were pointing out earlier, and it's a way of passing on best practice in that way.
So let me just bring us back to the agenda a bit. It sounds to me as though we're talking about whether this is the right template for detailing roles and some other options. I think there's also a more fundamental question about, do we need roles? What do we need? What are we trying to address by the creation of a role? You've got 3 suggested roles here. Do we need them? And I think there's maybe a more fundamental question about whether we're coming up with roles because we can think of them.
Yeah, maybe this would have made sense for these 2 parts of the roles conversation to go around the other way, where we look at the roles first. Like there's 3 of them that I feel like have emerged, not just from me. That would be really useful to kind of recognise as not just like a one-off task that needs to be done, you know, in a couple of weeks. It's like a sort of permanent or long-term sort of role that needs to be done.
I can say what I think is useful for roles in the groups that I've been with. For instance,
but what I just was going to say, just
what are the 3 that we proposed? What are the 3 that are listed down?
Just because you don't have too much time, I think there's 2 conversations here. You obviously have come up with specific roles that you would like the meeting to discuss and to approve. And then there's the larger question which we've gotten into on roles and whether roles are important or not in an organization and what for. I think maybe if we park that, because if we get involved in that, we'll never get back to the agenda, I don't think. So what if we look at the ones you came up with and the rationale for these particular roles?
Okay, so we've got the admin role. I'll just bring it quickly. This has mostly been done by me. It's kind of simple, largely repetitive things that are just handy to do. there's probably like kind of 10 responsibilities or 10 expectations to do, ranging from like managing Facebook group join requests through to organising events for these meetings, potentially even texting people about them. Maybe it would even include minute taking, unless we feel like that's something that's valuable for kind of one of the skills we want to each other go at that feels useful. Like in my school, like having a chair in the meeting was always someone new, and I think everyone benefited having a go at chairing meetings and stuff. So it's that self-development role that the admin may sort of take out of people's hands if we don't let other people try them if they want to. But yeah, I guess mainly it's just making sure that things do happen, and because I'm so massively overstretched, I often end up sort of creating an event for I just do a lot of stuff wrong because I'm just sort of hurrying through it, as you guys certainly have seen. So yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to flesh out this alone. In fact, Naya, I think, has done most of this, and he's fleshed out most of this focalizer role as well, actually, if not done all of them, possibly. I think he's done all of this, actually. I'd like to add some stuff too, I think. But yeah, so it'd be good to just have a way of collaborating on the design of roles, rather than just like one person or two people sort of design them, which, I mean, maybe that could happen if it does actually make the most sense. I don't know if it does. And then, you know, just be clear that actually I just want someone to take on the admin role or the focalizer role, or the third one, which was storytelling. I thought would be really useful, both internally and externally, capturing and sharing stories. And just feeling like the person who takes on that role is really doing it with the approval of the whole group, I think would feel really good, rather than just like one person is like, oh yeah, you could probably do this and I think it might be useful. It'd be good if it was like, here's Change the Future saying your role's really valuable to all of us and thanks for doing it.
What do you think?
I feel like there's lots of different cars travelling at different speeds. I'm struggling a bit, because a lot of the stuff, like with the whole working retreat stuff, that we decided that we need to strip things right back. So on one level, we're like stripping right back to who are we, why we're here, what is Change the Future, and then on a completely different motorway, we're going 100 miles an hour discussing all this other stuff. And so I suppose I'm just feeling very, I'm like trying to hold what feel like contradictions and not despair. So I am struggling, and I kind of feel like jumping out of the car.
So it's like, it feels like there's a kind of tension between the going back to basics and kind of really understanding what this is all about on the one hand, and on the other hand, what feels like almost like an overdevelopment or a very quick development without that foundation being built.
And I think it's partly the underside of the great fact that different people come every week, that every meeting feels like you're starting from scratch again. That's how it feels to me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I'm trying to embrace the fact that it's different to what I'm used to and explore it. But I'm definitely finding it a bit frustrating. I'm kind of just trying to make my own sense of whether I can sort of be in that way or not. I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that as well. Yeah, I've been in that place, kind of stretched between those, like putting the brakes on and rewinding in a way, plus the sort of trying to get a sense of progress for like years, literally years. And I've seen so many people like getting involved and dropping out and then coming back again, or and sort of constantly returning to the question of like, is this creating any value for me as an individual? Are we as a group creating any value for this?
But has it ever been done? The kind of collaboratively as a group, sort of really looking at the basics and starting really understanding who we are and what this group is?
Definitely not as well as it could have, I think. No.
Because for me that does feel like progress. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say put that as a counterpoint to progress.
Yeah.
And when I hear about the roles, I again feel it feels like a kind of a real elaboration built on, I don't know what it's built on. And my immediate question is, which is always my immediate question is, do we need this?
Yeah.
I don't even know if we need any of this. The one thing that I think I am convinced we do need is the admin role. All the other stuff, I think, if we need it, it will come up as a need. Why do we have to structure it into some kind of bureaucratic role?
Yeah. So to like speak to that a bit, there's the other two roles are the focalizer role, which I think like I took on some action points last week when we talked about the focalizer role, and you were a focalizer, and I don't think you poked me.
No, because I could see that you could do it. You were doing it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I was checking. Okay, I could have asked you if you needed help, but I was also aware that you weren't in the country. So because I could see you doing it, I kind of just left it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And then I had Naya, I think, I don't remember what, but yeah, I didn't get any focalizing anyway from. But maybe I just did all the things. I don't think I did that. I'd be quite unlikely to do all of the things.
I think you did.
I did.
Yeah.
But why have a focalizer role? Why not just say, look, I know myself well enough that if I take on these 5 things, I need somebody to help me take on the problem to make sure I do it.
Because I think people don't know themselves that well. That's been my experience for years. Is that people, including me, like want to believe that they will do that, but just haven't. Whatever it is, maybe haven't got enough experience of collaborating, or I don't know, pretend they are where they want to be when actually.
Could we, if someone comes back the next week and it's on there, follow up on what Luke said was going to do with Weber, Gray, whatever, and the person says, no, I haven't done it. Could we not just say, okay, so what happened? Let's look at that. Was it you should have taken it on, or
as long as there's some way of recognizing people haven't done things if they haven't.
Yeah,
that's all. That's all. I think that's the need. The potential focalizer role needs. I think.
So in the action points, we put down concrete actions and we put down people's names. So the following week we should always be following up, right?
Okay, so we've done that in the past. In fact, we've like sometimes highlighted action points and bolded them and put the name and stuff, but we haven't created a specific process to like actually return to them in the next meeting. So maybe that would meet the need.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. When we take the minutes, we're immediately making a new agenda. The new agenda immediately has the action points and the accountable person right there. And a person can ask, or we as a meeting can ask, what do you need to get that done?
Yeah,
the person might say, I need somebody just to nudge me, or I need somebody to help.
And that should, after introductions, that should, and role and meeting rules, that should be the next thing that's done is follow up on the last.
Yeah, exactly.
Last meeting.
Yes, I agree.
What's been achieved since then?
Yeah. Matters arising from the previous meetings.
That sounds good, I think, to me. I suppose in that, if we did that, then there wouldn't be much need for a focalizer, I think, in my mind, except that they could potentially be sort of the ultimate person to have a sense of like what each person is doing at any point in time. So they might be useful for kind of connecting people up a bit or making sense of.
Maybe the admin person can do that. The admin person can be more of the hub. Yeah. But I'm not saying there isn't a role for that. I'm just saying that if people can say, I need a focalizer.
I think that's certainly when we talked about it last week. That's what I felt we had agreed on, was that it was kind of an important thing, and we've given it the name focalizer so that we could talk about it in a way that reflected what it meant. But it wasn't a role to be kind of written up in my mind. I don't know.
I mean, there's not a lot of stuff on it. We could just like look at what Naya has written, and then there's like 4 things on responsibilities.
But I'm just worried about time.
Okay.
Rather than going into the detail of any of the roles that have been written, what if we agree that this is something that people can ask for? There is already a document on the focalizer role. Somebody can easily ask, if I'm taking this task on, I would like a focalizer.
Yeah.
And if anyone in the meeting can offer that, say, would you like a focalizer? Would you like me to give you a call during the week or whatever?
Okay.
So we don't have to get rid of it, but we also don't have to institutionalize it.
Okay.
And maybe we can take it to the working retreat and say, okay, we've got these roles. How is that working?
Yeah.
Because this has become now, because somehow it's developed, it's become a part of how we work together. So it should be part of that working retreat, I would think.
February 1.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Great.
Happy?
Glad to hear it's in February. That's my next question.
It's so far away.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna have to go, so shall I hand over to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Sorry. I'm in phase.
Nice one, Sarah. Anything else you want to?
No, not at all.
Briefly.
Yeah.
There's something
I'll
on
see
there
you
that
again.
involves you. On
Is
that.
there?
It has your name by it, I think.
Does it? What is it?
It's the Let's thing. It's that Let's project we talked
Okay,
about.
that we're keen to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally an idea.
Is it something you want to say anything about before you go?
It's a doing thing that I would like to do something towards. So I guess in my mind, eventually it would be its own little circle. That is kind of like a CTF circle project thing.
Like working retreats and democracy space.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Should we
Let's do
just
it an idea
propose
space.
a time to get together and focus on that circle?
Yeah.
And then we'll plot and scheme. I think it'd be really nice to meet up with the main people who run Let's in the area and discuss our perception of why their membership's declining and how maybe more it could be reinvigorated.
Yeah.
So this is an action point. One of you is going to put this on
It is.
and make an announcement.
It is.
Yeah. A meeting.
I'll call you.
You'll
arrange something like
vocalize her, and then she'll.
When are you back in the country?
I'm only gone for like 20 hours.
Okay, so you're back like on Friday or whatever.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
All right.
So yeah, maybe like Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll definitely see you.
Did you get that in there?
Yeah.
So
Did you mind?
we put it as an action point in the next. Yes.
So you get in touch when you get back.
Yeah.
We'll do fun things as well as business things.
More
Right,
fun.
it's
More
nice
fun.
to meet you. Happy Christmas. I'll see you. See you. Say bye to.
Yes.
Oh.
Hi. Okay.
Let's project is.
What? Can
Did it
we
mention
give like 10 seconds on it?
please?
In 10 seconds. Yeah.
It's a time banking scheme that's been going for about 25, 30 years, I think, and it's got thousands of members across the country doing all kinds of useful things for each other. But basically it strengthens communities, I think, by helping people meet their neighbours and find more ways to be valuable for each other. 1 hour of my time for 1 hour of anyone's time, so it's like a currency.
Yeah. Sounds good.
The Cardiff one is really growing. It's been formally endorsed by Cardiff County Council. And it's just launched maybe 6 months ago, a year ago. It's definitely being used.
It feels Change the Future to me because it doesn't rely on anything that's outside of the control of the community itself, like money, which is created by elite, kind of mysterious powers that we're not in touch with and are not held to account. Really, I think there's a currency that we own and operate and is run by us for us directly through human relationships. Feels like a beautiful thing and potentially a great opportunity to collaborate with something existing rather than just like creating new solutions all the time.
Great. So we'll get an invite to that. Sounds good. Can we just scroll back up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrific. Okay. So we took that out of. So on the roles, if we go back to that, just to finish that off, there's the question of the admin role. Is that something that Change the Future is now ready to move forward with?
I think it feels quite big and important. It's quite a big role. I think it'd be nice to post it on the workforce group maybe again, to just invite people to flesh it out a little more, unless we even want to create a physical meetup for it possibly.
Well, perhaps to invite people to, unless they have already, to kind of give their opinion about the idea of, because this is quite a big thing, having one person who actually does a lot of the admin for Change the Future. It's going to change the whole kind of feeling of the group to some extent. And the person will be paid. Maybe getting some, rather than the detail of the role, because maybe 1 or 2 people can do that, and it looks like it's mostly done anyway. To just get a little bit more discussion about how do we feel about this development.
Yeah, so maybe it's worth like half fleshing it out a bit, just even if it's just me and Naya and anyone else who's sort of got a proactive interest in it, just so we've got a discussion point with a bit more sort of detail.
So you think it needs more fleshing out than it has there?
I think so. It's only sort of listing 4 responsibilities here.
Okay.
And I reckon there's probably at least 7 or 8 or 9 things that they would definitely want to do, I think. These are probably quite vague, maybe. Yeah.
So are the 2 of you willing to finish that off?
Yeah, so maybe we'll post it in the work. I don't know, yeah, I don't really mind exactly how we do it. Yeah, I like working openly and collaboratively, as you know, so might just, after this, post it in the workforce group and just say, anyone interested in fleshing out this role a bit, don't worry if it doesn't make a lot of sense, we're going to discuss it anyway. It's just, we're just fleshing it out so we've got a bit more detail to sort of discuss at our next meeting. We'd sort of actually approve it in the next meeting. So we need to have something solid. I don't know, what's the best way to go about this?
Yeah. I like your idea of having enough detail that people can actually read it if they want the detail and add to it or subtract or whatever.
I mean, do we want to create basically like up to 15 minutes, if not 30 minutes to, anyway.
Where's the document?
I think you might have opened a new tab, maybe. So it should say December. Oh, maybe it closed, huh? Oh no, maybe not. I wish you could pause. Oh, there it is, December. Let's move it to the right. Yeah, do we want to create like, I don't know, 20 minutes or however long it would take to discuss the admin role once fleshed out a bit more in the meeting next week?
Yeah.
Or do we want to have like a whole separate video call for that? Maybe not. Maybe it's good to have it in the meeting.
I guess the thing I'm thinking is the meetings tend to be fairly small, and it is a pretty big change. Do you think you would get enough discussion on the Facebook page that would be more inclusive to, even if the final decision was made?
I guess as both of those things, that feels like enough participation. I don't know how to get more participation, short of like phoning people up,
Exactly.
which we could do, but yeah. So I could put a post out tonight on it, on the group, and say, yeah, chip in on this. Here's a few words. Well, it should be self-explanatory in there why the role is needed and stuff. We can have a bit of storytelling in there. Yeah, so hopefully a couple of people engage that way, and then a couple of people come to the meeting and discuss it.
So are you willing to do that?
Yeah, so I'll post it on the group and flash it on a bit. Yeah.
So maybe in the post in the group, you could just acknowledge it's a big change. It means having it's actually employing a person. Change the future.
Maybe potentially they could do the money stuff as well, like money movements and things. I suppose everything that's like, I suppose the admin role in my mind is everything that is not we know that there's a need there that's going to be ongoing indefinitely, and it's quite sort of simple. It's probably not especially kind of creative. It's probably not very complex, but it takes a bit of learning to do. So it's something that, like, it doesn't make sense to try and expect or train loads of people to do on an ad hoc basis. It makes more sense for one person to do it and make sure it happens and be reliable and accountable. Yeah, it feels like it makes sense for money to do that, like kind of repaying people's transport, all these sort of things.
And it has a cost implication. It would mean ChangeTheFuture would have to be able to continue to find funding to support that person.
Yeah, I think we'd probably, I don't know if it was kind of 6 hours a week or something, kind of 50 quid a week, maybe could be maybe 150, £200 a month, something for a few hours a month. Yeah, I mean, we could definitely afford that for a good few months without breaking any sweat. And then we've got a few grand still left, 3 grand or so.
Okay, so a post maybe that just highlights that it's a pretty big change potentially, and then link to that document.
You'll do that, I mean.
I'm hoping you'll do it.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
I think I missed that last bit. It's like not a very creative role or complex, but a role of training that not everyone needs to have, but essential nonetheless.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to write down heaps of detail about it, but just just kind of summarising that admin expectations would be, just things that I guess as a group we've decided, we're happy, we want to do things this way with money or with organising events or whatever. So it's now an agreed repetitive sort of task.
Okay.
There's no glamorising that. It's just a kind of, it's like most jobs. It's just like 99% of jobs basically, which is sort of a debatably old-fashioned sort of element of it. But yeah, I also don't think it makes sense or is in any way innovative to expect everyone to do every job all the time either. So.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to talk about in terms of the roles?
I could summarise the third one, the storytelling one. See if there's any.
Do we need to do that?
Might be nice to just summarise it in like less than 30 seconds.
Okay.
Need for it, possibly.
Okay. Yeah.
Just think lots of, be like, we have done some real stuff on the ground, like democracy spaces emerging, Wall of Ideas has happened and has a lot more prospects, and the Let's scheme and things like this. And I just think it could be really awesome for someone who likes filmmaking or taking photos and writing little blog things to just capture those stories and reinvigorate a kind of interest of, oh, this is something living and breathing. And somebody's actually bothering to capture the story about it and package it. We don't have any packaging of stories. Everything's quite distributed and messy, and it's not really easy to get an idea of what's actually happening.
Way of collecting the narratives. And,
equally for internal motivation and clarity, as well as external, good for funding, good for collaborations.
Okay.
Oh, this is what you really do, not just talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So I can write it down.
No, you don't need to write that down. So if we could just scroll back up. I know it's a pain in the arse to have everything on one page.
I need to get a third laptop.
Okay, so we've discussed the 3 different roles, one of which you will put up with some urgency on the site to try to get some discussion, because if that was adopted, that would be quite a big role. The other 2 roles are not going to affect that when you work together necessarily, but might bring some richness. There's the question of how we come up with roles and what we need roles for. That's a big question. So can we leave that behind?
Yeah.
The role stuff?
Feels covered.
Okay, so maybe if we just go back up. Sorry. Yeah. We could just, when you have a chance, go back up to the top of the agenda just to see what we skipped over in order to start with that.
can also get it on
You got
here.
it there.
Yes. Admin role, December.
Is there any updates from circles that we need to go into?
Democracy space. I've created a group Facebook chat thing. Huda left that, and I'm going to check out why.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's interest there. There's, I feel like there's still sort of ongoing support from Andy and Tilly to sort of open that up a bit. As long as it's sort of not out of control, and there's a sort of desire to keep it, especially from Tilly, I hear, to keep it, you know, intimate and not open it up so much it kind of all just falls out.
Is that working retreats?
This is democracy space.
Oh, sorry.
The democracy space circle, the group is looking into that. And my understanding is that the last thing that Tilly said was that she's going to contact you about setting up a time.
Yeah, so yeah, there's about 8 of us at least who are interested in being part of the circle, the democracy space circle, but we're waiting for Andy and Tilly to decide a time that works for them, because we shouldn't really do it without both of them being there, I think. So yeah, just waiting on Tilly for that.
Good. And the working retreat circle, I think everybody probably knows what's happening with that, because it's been posted on the Facebook group. That there's a proposed 1 day, and then there's a proposed 2 day after that. The 2 day after that probably is either end of February or March, right?
Well, Asher's in March. Huh?
It's in April, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is, yeah.
Kind of the end of April.
Yeah.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
February and end of March, early April.
Yeah.
I thought it was aiming for January for the meet and connect, and February is like the target for the 2 day thing.
I think originally we had said February/March.
Okay.
And I think that it got changed to January/February. But
Okay.
I think it is February/March.
Okay.
But I suspect it partly depends on when you put the doodle up, when people are available. But yeah, we don't want it too close to April. But
Have the doodles gone up yet?
sorry.
Have the doodles gone up yet?
The one for the 1 day, there's a 1 day that's going to be probably in January. I think the doodle for that Jem put up, didn't
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but then it seemed like at least one person had some trouble accessing it. I'd like to minute just any sort of links that we post for people to especially interact with. Just make sure that you test them yourself, and don't just test them when you're logged out of your own account, so you can see what the experience is like for others.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there is a doodle up for the 1 day. We're not sure if it's accessible. So I could get into it.
I think he may have fixed it now, so I didn't notify him about it, and he saw my post.
Okay.
And that's the 1 day event in January?
Yeah. And the doodle is up for that. It's on Facebook page. The link to it.
Doing great, Jamal.
Yeah. Okay.
Cross fingers.
So we did updates, we've done the admins, highlighted items above went to address in the last meeting. Okay, so the highlighted items are the matters arising from the last minutes. Okay, I didn't read that until then. So can we go on to point 6? Thoughts and queries in relation to online platforms. Are all the CTF areas easily accessible? Is that your point, Lou?
NL.
NL.
That's Naya.
Oh, Naya.
Should we park out until Naya's here to
Yeah.
bring it?
So we can maybe just acknowledge that as a newcomer, he's finding the multiple sites a little confusing, right? So he's looking for a way around that.
Who is this?
Naya.
How do I spell it? Maya. N-I.
How do you spell it, Lou?
Naya.
Yeah.
Someone might have just joined us as well. Who is Anonymous Jackal?
That anonymous. I'm not sure we go there because that's Naya talking about how we agreed in the last meeting we'd try sort of doing a debrief.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the last thing I need to submit in relation to Naya?
I think we're just parking that. I think we're just not gonna
Yeah, just if we don't lose it, just at that point, if we can carry it over to the next meeting.
Yeah, point 6.
Point 6.
So you've done that one.
We spoke briefly about the Let's scheme, and there's going to be a post about it.
Yeah.
So point 8. Anyone want to lead City Camp right?
Yeah.
Being revived.
That's the last thing on here, huh?
So that's another big project.
Yeah, it is. It's also something that potentially has the most framework already in place for it, and is probably closest to a reality where just people need to put time in, I guess, because like you could just kind of pull it off exactly how it has been done before. But there's probably also a fair bit of creative license there to do it however we want to do it as well. But I just think, I don't realistically have capacity to lead that as well. I just think there's an amazing opportunity there to organise an ambitious, but that at least it's kind of been done. There's like Toby Moore and other people there who can answer questions and stuff. The event is about City Camp.
Yeah, so you're about to say so.
It's it brings together local residents and police and city planners and all the kinds of people that me and Greg and Sarah were kind of trained at the Art of Hosting training recently to sort of help bring together. It's exactly that kind of discussion space, which in the past has taken place over at least 2 days, spanning at least like 3 venues. Nice venues, which I think have probably given their space for free or very cheap to use for City Camp. And both of the ones I've been to, 2014 and 2012, I think, saw probably like 5,000 people, I reckon, participate, and such a range of people. So I don't know how they got so many people involved, but I think there'll be a lot of people who will tweet it out and share it out and write about it and invite people through venues and events and networks. Like, it's a beautiful thing. Dem sort of gave a few 500 quid grants and mentor support to projects that sort of won a prize at the end and seemed like they would sort of help bring something valuable to the community. ChangeTheFuture won it in 2013, 2012. So yeah, that's how. Yeah.
So for me, this raises another kind of level of what is the capacity of ChangeTheFuture to be taking on projects. Because it feels like already there's so many things happening that things are being dropped. And just, should we actually be looking for more opportunities while we're struggling to actually follow through on the ones we have?
I feel mixed because I think there's a sort of, I sense a kind of hunger to actually people to get their hands dirty and actually do real, visible, tangible stuff now, as opposed to kind of just process ways of working kind of discussions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is definitely that. This is something that a person who's actually got the time for, potentially even paid. Like, this is the sort of thing that, again, I personally feel like ChangeTheFuture could, as it builds a portfolio of projects and collaborations like reviving City Camp and Let's and stuff, we can really easily just get in a few grand here and there to support at least someone leading that.
But how many things are kind of on the table already, I wonder?
Yeah, I was playing with ways of visualizing that.
Yeah, that's great. I was just thinking we need that.
So there's another website, of course, because it's not. I'm not going to do it on Facebook or something, because it's just not at all designed for that. But on Hilo, These are the communities that I'm part of. This is the Change the Future community, and we have events, we have members, and we have an About Us page. This is also where general discussion can happen too. So this
main website, what's this platform?
It's a brand new platform that's open source and beautifully in line with Change the Future, I think. And I've arranged a video call with the creator of it, just like I did with Lumio and Vocalize and Represent and other ones, Assemble and stuff. So hopefully we'll have a recorded video call with them and we can ask them what their vision is and how we might collaborate, what's their plans for the future. But in here is a unique button I think is really nice, projects. So we can list Change the Future projects in here. Such as reinvigorating the LET scheme, democracy space, wall of ideas. So yeah, this is just kind of me playing with it here. This isn't kind of approved by Change the Future, but I'm just testing the tool really, because I feel that's part of the remit of Change the Future's work, is to test these kinds of tools.
But those are 3 things that are happening, right?
That's 4 projects.
What is the fourth one? Developing resources for the human collaboration we advocate.
Yeah. So
that's the ongoing work of Change the Future.
Yeah, that's the kind of more abstract, more sort of meta side of Change the Future's work, to just kind of create useful resources and capture stories of how we're succeeding and failing in different ways and share those.
We're also trying to design a series of working retreats.
So maybe all circles.
Yeah, because it's a very practical thing.
Yeah.
And I think supports all of the projects.
So maybe circles would be something like this, but yeah. Anyway, you can edit them later. But a cool thing about it is that it's just got a few swanky features. You can offer a request, share intentions and events, and they can happen inside any project. So you begin with the community, you go inside a project. You don't need to write all this stuff.
No,
don't.
Yeah,
just put check out high-low if you're interested.
Let's just remember that this is in response to just a question of how many things we're doing.
Yeah.
So this is you're just showing us where you're kind of collating it all.
I am interested to decide fairly soon, potentially, whether we actually want to, like, just to decide what tools we are and aren't using, so that people know what the expectations are of them.
So let's put that on the agenda as a kind of like a full thing to look at and list the different ones and decide which ones are useful and should be used.
I feel like that's quite a big thing to probably do in person. I think maybe at the like February or March thing.
Okay.
Because there's so many tools out there, so many groups and organisations making tools to make our lives easier. Yeah. Groups just like Change the Future. Yeah. And we've got to pick some and not all of them.
Yeah. But some of your research documents that you created that compared to these tools, are there kind of have you like written blog pieces that actually present some of that research that you've done, or is it simply in like working docs that people can access open source but may not be open, accessible, or
that Google Doc is public to anyone. Anyone can just search that on that. If they just search now on Google for comparing e-democracy apps, like they will probably be able to find that Google Doc that publishes to the web if you make it so.
Check that later.
That is kind of the point of it. Yeah. In fact, most of the stuff written on that document is probably not written by me now. Probably the majority of it is a combination of Alex PB and Ed from Represent and Peter Anderson from Vocalize. All filling out.
What are they called again? Collaborative working apps, or what are they called?
It's called e-democracy and decision-making apps, I think.
Hilo isn't on there?
I haven't put Hilo on there, but yes, it's probably the newest edition. I haven't stuck it on yet.
But that is a document that we could use at a working retreat, for example, to kind of go through and
that's another technology to explore. Yeah, I think that Google Doc of comparing e-democracy sort of apps doesn't include stuff like all the sort of collaborative tools that we might use, you know, like Rike or Asana or Facebook and stuff. Okay. It's just sort of things that allow you to vote.
Okay.
Yeah. And deliberate.
Okay.
Mm.
Did you see the agenda again?
Is Asana like Asana?
Asana.
ASANA. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a question about CityCamp.
Yeah, I guess.
So you're inviting people to get interested in that. You're not going to lead it, but you're wondering if there's interest.
Yeah,
To
I'd be happy to support
it.
someone who's, I mean, obviously no one's going to jump forward immediately and be like, I'm going to lead that. But if there's someone who's like, this sounds really cool, let's meet up about it, then yeah, I think the circle thing works. Like kind of making a potential circle, like a sort of, you know, just like a circle that's not sort of confirmed yet, but like just people meet up basically around the topic of CityCamp, and maybe I can try and get Toby Moore to come along and people who set it up last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is, in terms of arranging that meeting, is that something that should be on the agenda now, or is that something that's a little in the future?
Yeah, so I don't know, I guess.
Is that organising the attendance of ChangeTheFuture member at Brighton City Camp, or organising the whole event, or contributing to
actually organising the event? The event probably won't happen unless people step forward, because the people who organised it the last couple of years have just moved away, or they've moved into jobs that they don't have the capacity to make it happen this time.
So this is just an invitation to assess the interest, right?
Yeah.
And then if there is interest, then it'll become a circle.
Yeah. Because it could be fun to work on, great for CVs and experience and whatever, but also bring loads of value, I think, and reputation to ChangeTheFuture, I think.
So action points on that was get in contact with Tony Moore. Toby, sorry.
At this point, the only action point is to issue the invitation, right?
To
see what the interest is.
Yeah, to see if people actually are able to create that capacity and have that interest too.
So can we leave that with you? It sounds like it's something that you're wanting to assess. How interested people are. So like a Facebook.
I need to probably stagger these posts on the Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, maybe share that in a couple of days.
Yeah, it's not that. It doesn't sound like it's completely urgent. But yeah, and see how many people reply, and if they want more information, then it starts to take off.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, nice.
Number 9. David.
I think he's got to be there to really.
Okay. So 10. Yeah, brief checkout. Is there anything else, any other business that we didn't discuss? Things we skipped over, or things that we need to discuss tonight?
I was particularly interested in, I didn't know about your desire to support or re-energize the Vital Events project.
Yeah, that's been really new.
I don't think I even knew that one existed locally.
Really?
No, I don't think I did. I've been here 6-7 years before moving away 2 years ago. And then, so I think I have particular interest in having a separate chat with those involved in ChangeTheFuture, interested in that issue and that local initiative, and helping re-energize that project, particularly because I went to a few seminars on it in Cardiff, and I know that the Cardiff scheme, since like a year or two ago, has now really got a lot of traction and official backing from the council. And I was even reading a business plan today, and it's getting mentioned in kind of the business plans for running youth centres and community centres. The element of volunteerism, but that there will be this guaranteed connection to the time banking scheme locally. It feels like that all volunteers will get subsidised, not just subsidised services within the organisation they're volunteering for, but also across the city, cinemas and so on. So it's
No way.
Yeah.
So it's become a member of the Let's scheme, and then you get money off staff in.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. When I was given like a Spice Network like pound note a year ago, that was definitely what I was told. You to the cinema, and you get a pound. You get a pound off the cinema. That was the note I was given. It was the Spice Network. It was really sophisticated, really fancy.
So then
note.
They've got printed
notes.
So it's actually currency, local currency.
Yeah, and it sounded like it linked to a national network. Maybe it was Let's, but it was the Spice Network. This one, and I know that Cardiff's scheme. So I would be really interested in doing a bit of a pull of research, across who's doing what and how finding out what the Brighton Project done, the history of it, and then looking to see how the likes of Cardiff and maybe whether it be Bristol or whoever else has kind of managed to see increase in take up of the time banking schemes recently, can learn from those initiatives and kind of bring that learning and to share it with the Brighton group and see things grow
I've only ever known it to have checkbooks, never actual printed money.
Yeah, well, again, I had not heard about it until about a year ago, and I was quite impressed by it.
But they call it Let's. They call it part of Let's.
I can't remember what it's called. Unfortunately, the business plan I was reading on the coach over to London today, I actually left at a restaurant in London, and so it's being given to me tomorrow once I collect it. But I can look it up and get some information on it for next week. Just a bit of information about where the Cardiff one's at, and I'd like to talk to the members here that are interested in regenerating the Brighton.
So you definitely should make sure you can make it to the first meeting.
The one, oh, you mean this? So you've already arranged this meeting then with the organisers of the Brighton?
Why not just me and you and Sarah just fucking fix it tonight?
Yeah,
it'd be so nice just to actually hear the sound of footfalls moving forward. Yeah. From my point of view, that's a hunger of mine. I'm guilty of.
If you fix it,
I'm back Monday afternoon, evening.
Let's find. Sorry, man.
I'm back on Monday evenings, and
cool.
Probably around for dinner.
The three of you can do that.
We can
announce it on the page, so everybody else it's.
We can find 2 or 3 options and then doodle it so people can choose.
Yeah, and even if not in person, then digitally. If you can't meet on that Monday, Tuesday, then we'll meet at some point.
Yeah.
Before the next meeting, it'd be nice to.
Yeah. So if you got time, if we're about to wrap up now, if you've got sort of at least 10 minutes, we can just have a quick chat about what we'd like that meeting to look like and pick dates and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then we'll just phone Sarah. Huh?
Yeah. Good plan.
Nice.
Good plan.
Nice.
And can I just? Is there anything else?
Not from me.
Did you see the agenda again? The only thing that was, I think it was discussed last time, is just how the art of hosting is being brought back to change the future.
We discussed it in the last meeting a bit, and me and Sarah said that because it was your point, but you weren't here, so we just kind of said it for you, and we just felt like it's going to add value to Change the Future because it's inside you and me and Sarah, and we are interested in bringing. We don't need any sort of like encouragement, particularly really, to like feel inspired to bring it into group meetings and processes and working retreats. I don't think, but I guess I feel quite stretched already personally in my capacity, and so I'm not looking to create something that's not being specifically asked for. So we said if anyone is specifically asking for us to do like a mini sort of art of hosting training or something, kind of teaching some of the things that we took away, then just ask, and like on Facebook or phone us or contact us any way people find most comfortable, and we'll respond to that. And so far no one has yet. So.
My understanding is there's a lot of things that aren't being asked for that kind of show up. And my understanding is that, and I didn't go back to look at the recording, but that the people that went on the training would somehow bring it back in a more formal way than that, like at least offer it. And it could be that everybody says, not really very interested. But at the time that we discussed it, I remember there was at least a couple of people in that meeting that said, I would be interested in that, like a half-day sharing of the experience and some of the tools and techniques and stuff.
One option would be at somewhere like, working retreat, where you have
exactly, that's the point.
half a day
That's what I meant.
it's just that kind of learnings and trainings. I think that's perfect to do.
Yeah,
similar time there.
I mean, why create another? What are we going to do when we get together? All of our conversations have already been put into the working retreats. Like we'd just be creating a fake conversation or acting. We'd have to like organise.
No, I wasn't thinking of. No, but I totally take your point. But I wasn't thinking of doing it in order to process an issue. I was thinking of just kind of going through what the training was in some way, showing some of the different attitudes and approaches of the training itself. So not actually to work on an issue, but simply to almost like pass along some of the training skills.
Feels to me like there's the kind of data of it, like the actual tools, if you like, in the toolkit, and then there's a lot of what we discussed at Art of Hosting, which is all the stuff in between that's a bit more abstract, but the kind of quality of the human relationship and what the space feels like to be in, that feels somehow sort of outside of each individual tool that's being used or activity. And I think the book, which we could take photos of and share in the group and sort of maybe comment on our favorite pages or something, possibly feels like that's a way people can look at, print off and in their own time, in their own way, sort of learn, maybe practice some of those tools and activities. But I think the best way to actually do what's at least as important, I think, which is that's sort of what the space feels like to be in with people, is surely going to be best demonstrated at a working retreat when we've got a real sort of purpose for it. It's like, I think those sort of like art of hosting is best demonstrated when applied to a real situation. I think like we even struggled a little bit at some points, I think, trying to learn it at that event, because we didn't actually have anything to talk about. We didn't have any problems to solve other than ones that were just sort of randomly taken to prove the tools work.
Okay, so I agree with you. I think that's true of everything. That everything in practice, the more abstract things always come out of practice. So I totally agree with that. But that would mean that the working retreat would be, this is the one in February, March, I guess, would be run along the lines of Art of Hosting.
I reckon partly, and April, I think, with Asher Centre, like elements of that surely coming in.
And at the same time, looking at our way of working, because it could be that people want things that weren't on Art of Hosting and bring in other sorts of things as well.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, but there's content and then there's process, and I think Art of Hosting is not about the content, it's about the process. It's the way you address whatever conversation in it. So people can say, people are going to surely come more with ideas around the content and the discussions and topics of conversation than they are the ways they want to discuss them, I think.
Although that working retreat is more about the ways. The way we've announced it, at least. It's more about our way of working together to really look at that.
The February one. Yeah, but I think that's it still feels like they still feel like mostly conversation topics rather than conversation methods, I think. Even if we're deciding what our methods will be for conversation in our day-to-day operations. Yeah, sure, some people I'm sure will like to come with games and sort of, like if Lula comes, she'll want to bring a couple of activities and stuff, I'm sure will be very welcome, and that'll be awesome. But I think, yeah, I think totally, yeah, let's just remember to say, here's something we tried at Art of Hosting and it seemed to work really well. It'd be good to try it here and see what people think. The topic we're going to focus on is how we communicate together in the group or something. Let's share stories of how we communicate in the different groups that we've been part of.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. Yeah, that would be a good place to do it.
Because I think otherwise, then our lessons we've taken from Art of Hosting are probably not really going to shine unless we use something real to test them on. I think we need like a proper, that'll be where they are most clear in their value, I think, is when applied to something relevant.
I would always agree with that, and yet when I hear you say that now, I also think that even like a 2-hour, I'm not saying you should have to do it or anything, but a 2-hour discussion and presentation about kind of the spirit of Art of Hosting. Because there's a lot of times during the training where there's almost like we pressed pause on the process, the group process, and kind of came along the side and said, look at what we're doing. And look why we did this instead of that.
Was you there as well, were you?
Yeah, I was there as well. Yeah, 3 of us were there. And that could actually be taken, maybe not as effectively, but it could be taken as kind of the spirit of the approach, which is different, I think, than actually doing it. It's kind of giving a sense of why do we do it? Why do we do it this way? What is the intention behind doing this rather than that? Why bother to be so collaborative? What is the point of all of this? Why are the facilitators called hosts rather than facilitators, for example? Those kind of like teaching things. I'm not sure they would come out of just doing it, but maybe they would.
So you mean?
Because there's something about that that's almost like talking about the deeper values of Change the Future. How do we want to make decisions together? Not just.
But can you not have those 3 things that we have at the same time? I mean, not literally the same second, but like we discuss in advance. You know, like a handful of people have sort of thrown in content of actual specific conversations they want to have. Then we use half Art of Hosting methods, and half people practice their own methods. But while we're doing the Art of Hosting ones, we periodically check in and just go pause button. Yeah.
So that would be almost repeating what we experienced. Yeah.
Except with more specific, conscious sort of topics at the core of it all.
Exactly. But some of the topics, of course, if we follow the Art of Hosting, would only arise on the day.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That makes sense, Jamal.
Yeah.
That's quite meta, isn't it? That's quite abstract.
And it also requires quite a bit of skill. Someone has to remember the training well enough.
It's like there's the what. We're like at this working retreat in a nice, pretty place together, and there's the what we're talking about or focusing on, the thing that's on the printed piece of paper before you arrive. These are our main things we want to explore together about Change the Future. Then there's the how, and then there's almost like the why, or the why of the how. It's like it's exploring the how a bit more, like just taking moments to kind of go, this is why we are using this approach to explore these conversations.
Okay. So, does anyone want a brief checkout? What did you take from, or appreciate, or achieve from the meeting?
Why are they all positive things?
I don't know. Want to add in something? What did you find difficult about the meeting?
No, it's nice. I mean, it'd be nice to Yeah, it'd be nice if I felt the two people leave. I think totally understandable. I think so. I don't know what to suggest there, kind of thing. No, yeah, nice. Really appreciated. Great minute taking and facilitating. I felt like it really helped it. Yeah, I think we got through the things we wanted to. Yeah, like we've had a couple of times in the past, like just having some items that the people who put them on there weren't able to put on. It feels like it'd be great to really try and
Is that because they're
have
not
people
here?
come. Yeah, I think Naya did tell me possibly that he wouldn't be able to come. But yeah, like good. Yeah, starting like we always start late. It'd be really nice to like start proper on time. And also, I guess I'd really like to know why some people aren't here, like who have been. Like Leon was here a lot, you know, pretty much every meeting, like clockwork.
Yeah.
And Stefan usually is. And I think he's still in Chiang Mai, because he's super reliable at coming. But yeah, I might just see what Leon's up to and how he's feeling about stuff. I feel like I definitely sort of noticed.
Yeah.
But yeah, good otherwise. That's me.
You don't have to make
I don't have to admit this.
none of that. No, sorry. Don't.
Oh.
You're super detailed.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't admit the first bit, but oh gosh.
Yeah, I think relax, man. I reckon.
Cool.
I think we need a minute.
Yeah, we probably don't. We typically have probably just really brief.
I mean, you could.
Minutes, so
Yeah,
you've given us a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I think recognise your own value in the meeting, even when you're taking minutes. You shouldn't disappear from the conversation. I think
That's
so.
true. That's true.
So it's
Yeah.
okay because we've got the video as well. You can just summarize enough for people to check the video because you're time stamping as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
So
yeah.
then they
probably
just
don't
go. People reflected on the meeting, and then if people are interested in checkouts and stuff like Dorothea or whoever. They
Why don't we stop the recording now?
Yeah. Okay. What for the checkouts?
Yeah,
So we won't have any detailed record then.
of the checkout. Yeah, I think it's good not to.
Okay.
We finished, haven't we?
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Now he's gonna be mean.
Gonna whip us all.
Yeah.